my fearfully and wonderfully made humans. I'm your host, Diana, from Through the Valley Therapy and Transform Mind Consulting and Coaching. And you know, I love diving into topics that blend science, faith, and holistic healing. A couple of weeks ago, I attended the South Florida Clinical Collective Networking meeting, where I was on the lookout for someone to demystify a buzzword that keeps coming up: somatic. I've been hearing it everywhere, and I thought, why not bring in an expert or two to not only teach me about this, but also share their knowledge with you? So today, I'm joined by Amy Hagerstrom, LCSW, Somatic Experiencing Practitioner, and Safe and Sound Protocol Provider. She helps adults struggling with anxiety, the effects of trauma, and midlife stress, especially when those stress cycles feel nerve ending despite trying other therapy approaches. Amy specializes in somatic experiencing, a body based trauma healing method, and safe and sound protocol, a music based therapy that stimulates the vagus nerve to help regulate the nervous system. If you've been following the podcast, you might remember we touched on Safe and Sound Protocol back in episode 48 with Rosara Hincapi, where we explored healing trauma, immigrant mental health, and the Safe and Sound Protocol. Today, we're taking that conversation even deeper as Amy breaks down how these body based approaches help clients process stored trauma, regulate their nervous systems, and reconnect with themselves. She also works with children and teens, particularly when big emotions, sensory sensitivities, or regulation challenges make daily life overwhelming. Based in Fort Lauderdale and working exclusively online, Amy's here to help us understand why somatic is more than just a buzzword and how tuning into the body can lead to deep healing. So, Amy, thanks for being here.
Thank you for having me. I really
Yeah.
appreciate it.
All right. So we know every wounded healer has a story. And I want to know a little bit about you and what led you to somatic therapy.
Yeah, so I struggled with my mental health for a very, very long time. I was in talk therapy since I was about 14 years old. Long time, a lot of really severe depression, a lot of anxiety. And there was a particularly rough time when I asked my therapist what she thought about yoga. And she
Mm.
was like, "Oh, it's great. I have a yoga teacher for you." So I started going to this yoga class where I was by far the youngest person in the class. It was a bunch of older ladies, and it was a really gentle yoga class where at the end of the class there was 15 minutes of what's called yoga nidra, which is just yoga sleep. It's deep relaxation. And I was going to these classes weekly. And after a while on my drive home, I started to cry. And it was a
Wow.
really, really nice cry. In this period of my life, I like to explain it like it was like a purgatory. I was, I didn't cry, but I
Hmm.
was hurting. I was really, really hurting. And this crying was it was just so nice. It was like I was starting to be able to come home to myself again through these
Wow.
classes where there was this gentle movement and safety and co-regulation. It's a
Hmm.
word we use a lot in therapy and somatic therapy with the other ladies in the class, with the
Okay.
teacher, just the safety of the movement. And that started to maybe thaw things a little bit, but it wasn't quite enough. I was still going to therapy, and there was no mention of the body at all in therapy. And I was, just talking and searching for answers and analyzing, but it only got me so far.
Hmm.
So then from a roommate and friend, I learned about somatic experiencing, this body-based trauma healing modality. And I
Yeah.
started to see my own, actually, I saw a few of them, different ones, somatic experiencing practitioners. And I went through the training myself while I was in social work school. I learned about polyvagal theory, which is there's different parts to it, but the main thing is that there's fight, flight, and freeze or collapse,
Mm-hmm.
and that the body's always looking out for safety and danger, and the body has to respond to that.
Right.
And I started to learn that this deep depression, these mood changes that I had, this stuckness, wasn't that I was deeply flawed, because I believed I was deeply flawed,
Mm.
but that my body I didn't feel safe.
Yeah.
I didn't feel safe, and my body was just really trying to protect me. And often it happened in social situations or interactions, because when we have early relational trauma in our families,
Mm-hmm.
that sets in that we're looking out for, am I safe, or am I in danger in relationship?
Yeah.
And logically, you're safe. Logically, nobody's coming to get you or to hurt you.
Right.
When you have really early trauma, if you're feeling unseen, not understood, it can be as if you don't even exist. It can feel
Mm-hmm.
really, really threatening. So it took away so much of the shame that I felt. And
Mm.
that's where healing really started to happen, and to recognize those things in session.
Yeah.
My therapist, and to
Wow.
that.
Wow, Amy, thank you. Thank you for sharing that because so many go through that and then that guilt and shame that they carry, or they don't understand, like they beat themselves up because I hear this a lot. They beat themselves up because logically I should be doing A, B, C. Logically, I know what I need to do to move forward logically. And so to me, when the body starts reacting, right, or get dysregulated, so we use these words because we know them. Like you're
Yes.
at LCSW, I'm an LMHC. We use these words.
Yeah.
It's kind of also like a lot of my listeners may be Christians, and then we have the Christianese where we know say salvation and sin and all that. But those are vocabularies that we learn to use so we can talk to each other. Tell me what actually is somatic and
Yeah.
co-regulation a little more
Yeah.
maybe to get the audience that has
Yeah.
no clue. Like remember where you were in the beginning, because now you do this, you're a practitioner, you're a therapist, you get to utilize these methods and you're teaching others. But say there's someone right now listening, they're like, what is a somatic? Because like, I get it. I read The Body Keeps the Score. That's one of the number one books that we all, right? And
Yeah.
I'm also a holistic practitioner. So so please explain to the audience somatic. Like, where's that word come from? What does it actually mean?
Yeah. It means the body. It just means the body.
Okay.
Well, I think it might be Greek or Latin. I don't
Yeah.
know. It means the body. So when you're
Okay.
talking about somatic therapy, you're talking about bringing the body into the therapy. We are mind and body and spirit. But we often forget that, or don't think about that, or act like it's just extra. But when we're able to bring awareness to what, and if you struggle with anxiety, you likely know, you likely have felt it. You feel what it's like to have your heart beating out of your chest. You feel those really awful butterflies in your stomach, or the clammy hands. That is your body reacting to what it thinks is danger. I'm nervous right now, so my body, I'm feeling it. I feel my heartbeat. I feel my face being flush. That is my body reacting.
Mm-hmm.
When we leave the body out altogether, we're really leaving out an essential element there.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what is the difference between like you said, talk therapy? Because to me, I understand that there are different clients out there, and I also know when I can't do all of it, right? Because I'm not trained in somatic experiencing. I'm
Yeah.
not trained in DBT,
Yeah.
dialectical behavioral therapy. And to me, these different modalities have its place.
Yes.
right? And I'm straight up. I'm CBT. I will challenge the thoughts. I'm more like a psychoeducational trainer, coach. Like you come to me after you felt all that stuff with Amy, you come to me and I'll give you
Yeah.
a plan that we can move forward with. And then you handle the somatic experiencing with someone else that might be able to do that with you. Like I do have clients where I'll send them to EMDR or DBT skills groups. Or now that I know you do this and this is what you are really well at doing. I'm like, all
Yeah.
right, you need like 5 sessions with Amy to really get to your body because I'm not trained in that, and that's okay.
Yeah.
So, I want to talk about chronic pain a
Okay.
little because
Okay.
Amy, I'm telling you, like I have an autoimmune due to my own CPTSD, due to, childhood trauma. And I've worked it but I remember going to yoga, and that is when I realized I had to go to EMDR because a lot of stuff that was happening in my yoga, I had no idea. I was getting flashbacks in. I think I talked to you about that, Amy, in
You
the
did.
the
You,
bird, well, not
I
what's
end
the
up pigeon
pose?
pose.
Pigeon pose.
Yeah.
And I'm in pigeon pose going, what's happening here? What's happening? Because I
Yeah.
finally allowed my body to be in that restful state, right?
Yeah.
And we have to be careful with that because sometimes as practitioners, we're like, oh, this method would be the method that's for everybody or it would help. But I'm like, no,
Mhm.
I want to empower our
Mhm.
clients to be in their gut state, right? In their intuition
Yeah.
to respect it. So I went into yoga. I did it. It was one, I have to say, I loved it. I did. And at other times, I had to battle some stuff and I had to know it's okay to stop without guilt or shame,
Yeah.
right? But
Yeah.
I believe in feeling your feels. If you got to feel it to heal it, you got to go through the valley. That's why I named it Through the Valley. You got to go through it, right, Amy?
Yeah.
So tell me about the reason I brought up chronic pain, because I was diagnosed with, um, oh my gosh, chronic inflammatory response syndrome, CIRS. And back in the day, there were so many different things that I was diagnosed, but I did not know how it all comes together. And
Hmm.
pain can cause depression,
Hmm.
right? And other things. So, how do you use, like, can you break down the mind body connection and how unresolved emotions or trauma might be showing up in the body
Yep.
as pain?
Yep. So I have fibromyalgia. I know about this intimately. When we have a whole lot of undealt with emotions, say you have depression or anxiety. Anxiety is a really easy one to use an example. You're nervous, you're bracing, your muscles are tight, they're tight. And maybe they get tight in certain areas of your body. Certain areas are more protective than other areas, the hips with pigeon pose. That is a lot on those muscles long term to be bracing and to be bracing. You're it's probably going to start to hurt or get really tender.
Yeah.
And then you start to get scared of the pain. So the fear causes the body's always on the lookout. Am I safe or am I in danger in our environments,
Hmm.
relationally, and in our body? So then the pain becomes a threat. And that activation in your body, that fight flight response goes up again, more bracing on top of this area that's already been so tight and working so hard to protect. It thinks it's protecting.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's depression, anxiety. You can get pain because of those,
Yeah.
because our bodies are always responding. And that's a lot on the body to always be bracing.
Hmm.
And then to feel that fear again, and you're just in a cycle.
Right. It's a training of the brain. It's like rewiring your brain to protect you. I mean, your brain is constantly, it's been like that for thousands and thousands and thousands of years. It's
Yes.
like the saber-tooth tiger thing that we learn,
Yep.
right? It's
Yep.
like we're always protecting. And so then all of a sudden you feel that pain and you're like, oh no, here it comes again. And now we're going to embrace even harder whatever it is.
Yeah.
How do you get out of that? Like, can you just share some of the things you might do with a patient or a client, or what worked for you?
Yeah. So one technique I use is to help people find a spot in their body that feels pretty good. And if there's no spot that feels pretty good, a spot
Mhm.
that feels neutral or feels less bad. And
Okay.
even if it's your big toe or the tip of your nose, and practice being there, noticing that, helping your system know, because pain is loud. It's so loud. And that loudness is trying to protect you.
Hmm.
But being in that pain, you're not necessarily, it's perceived. It might, and go to your doctor. Like I tell people, make sure nothing's actually really,
Yeah.
really wrong. Or even if it is, you can still
Right.
do
Because
things.
these are pains I realize, Amy, like you said, fibro, I can never say the word correctly, but I know my aunt had that. She was diagnosed, but then you look into her history and she came from a traumatic
Yeah.
background,
Yeah.
right? So it is, understanding like that pain. And that's another thing that I'm sure you probably gone through this too, if you have fibromyalgia and me with the situation. We look okay.
Yeah.
Right? We look pretty healthy. We look right. And so
Yeah.
then the assumption of like, there's nothing wrong with you because it's not a broken bone that, you're not in a
Right.
cast. You're not
Right.
having these situations that you're seeing. These are things within ourselves. The worst part was when the medical doctors would gaslight. I don't know if you were
Oh,
gaslit.
totally.
Like there's nothing wrong with you. There's not what? It's all in your head. You need to go see a psychiatrist. And I'm
Go get CBT.
yeah, no offense to me since I am a CBT.
No offense to you, but I've been told that.
Yeah. Challenge the thoughts, challenge the
Yeah.
thoughts. But honestly, when I went to my functional integrative doctor and they look in the genetic components and everything, they were like, no, you have a gene that, and I'm like, what? And with the fibromyalgia and other things like, there's another one, not just fibro. What's another, the sleeping one, the chronic,
Chronic fatigue syndrome.
yes. Okay. Yeah, I mean it is a real it isn't it's in your body too. It's all connected and people forget and they want to just say no, this is all in your head. Go get psychiatric medicine. And
Yeah.
so what do you say about that? Like what I just
Yeah.
brought up?
It's horrible. It's horrible to go through the process when I mean, the pain is very real. It's very real. And mine's not detected. And sometimes it's better. I mean, most of the time I'm good, but I do a lot to take care of my
Exactly.
nervous system and,
Mhm.
and my body. And when I overdo it or when I'm especially stressed, it's not so good. But and yeah, when people see you, you look fine, you look okay. So it's a really hard experience to go through that. Um, and emotional support in like the capacity that I provide it can help so much because what we're doing is helping let the body know that you're safe.
Mm,
Helping to bring on, then that's why I say we practice going to a part of the body that feels better. Because then you're practicing going away from this part that's screaming at
yeah.
you. Look,
Okay.
there's something different. And it's going to go right back to the screaming. Okay, we hear you. We honor you, like that part of the body. Let's see if we can go back. And then this is called pendulation. So we just go back and forth to what feels good, I call it the yuck, to the yuck, to what feels good, to the yuck. And maybe there's nowhere that feels good in the body. And so that
Mm.
we practice going outside of the body
Oh.
mindfully. Would it be okay to take a look around the room or look around? If you see something you don't like, keep looking. Because if we're doing telehealth and somebody's at home and they see piles of laundry or dishes, and I think of it of like, what else is there? the pain is screaming at you and it wants you to think that's the only thing that's there. So
Mhm.
we're looking at what else is there. So when you're looking at the room or you're noticing another part in your body, oh, that's there too. It's like the pie. The pain is a piece of the pie, but there's all of these other parts in your body that have
Mhm.
different sensations than the pain. Those deserve a little attention too. And the space that you're in and looking around the space, it's called orienting to the space that you're in. When you're in a lot of pain, when you're highly stressed, you're not looking around.
Mm.
You're not seeing what else is there. Maybe what really cool or interesting things are there. Maybe even in your body, we might play with rubbing hands together or feeling, and somebody with pain, this might not feel good, but
Right.
there might be something, and I was rubbing my arms for those who are
Yeah.
listening.
This will
And
be on YouTube too. So if this is
okay,
something you want to see, you could go on
okay.
YouTube.
Um, we play like we naturally do things to self-soothe and we don't even know it. People
Right.
play with their rings, they
Yeah.
shake their leg up and
Mhm.
down, sway back and forth. I love it when that shows up in session. And then yeah, a lot of us were shamed for those things when we were kids. We might have gotten in trouble for them,
Mhm. Sit
like the
still.
pencil on the desk.
Mhm.
That was your body trying to regulate.
So
That was,
let's talk about that regulate because
uh,
people will listen and be like, I hear this a lot on your, your show, Diana, co-regulate, dysregulate, just to emotionally regulate. What does that actually mean?
so from my perspective, it's not calm. A lot of people think of regulation as being calm. It can be,
Hmm.
but we want to be able to bring down that activation, whether it's the anxiety or whatever heightened feelings that you're feelings, enough that we can think clearly, that
Mm.
we can be connected to the people that we're with, that we can be engaged. So what we're doing is bringing on, this gets into polyvagal theory. There's so many terms.
Good. I want to know more about polyvagal because
Yeah.
I know I have the book. I never dove deep in it. I kind of like did the shortcut version of like going on YouTube
Yeah.
University, and because there's so much to learn nowadays, and
Yeah.
I'm always trying to find tools for my clients. But then I also know when I'm not enough for them, which is fine because my job. This is how I see it. Like sometimes I could be a general practitioner, but you're going to have to go for a little while or maybe find a new one that's like the EMDR because your trauma is I don't have the tools and I know what my boundaries are.
Yeah.
And I need to make sure that it's first do no harm. I'm not going to
Yeah.
pretend so I could keep you
Totally.
forever. Our jobs as therapists is to get you functioning in a society that is dysfunctional. I'm sorry to say.
Totally. Totally. I I think about that all the time, and it's so hard today. We have things pulling our attention in every which way, and then we have these devices that are designed to keep us on and just away from our lives, and everything pulls us away from our ability to be in the present moment, to be being able to be in the present moment and being here. That's regulation.
Mm.
That's like that capacity. The word capacity comes up for me so much. Have you heard of the window of tolerance?
Yes, you want to explain
Yeah.
that for my
Yeah. So
audience, please?
Dr. Dan Siegel is a child, I don't know if he's a child psychiatrist or psychologist. He came up with this term, window of tolerance. So when you're in the window, you can think clearly, you can be connected. It's think of that social engagement system that I just mentioned. Think clearly, be connected to people. There's creativity, there's problem solving. But we want the window of tolerance to be able to handle some agitation.
Hmm.
We want it to be able to handle some. anger that you can still keep the lid. Like he also came up with this hand brain model to teach kids, keeping the lid on
Oh.
the cognitive part of your brain. Because when we think about when you've gotten totally triggered or you lashed out at somebody or you totally spiraled and panicked, your cognitive brain wasn't there because there's this part of your brain called the amygdala, and it's it does several things, but one of its jobs is to detect if you're safe or if there's threat. So it's the threat detector. And if it detects threat, it's going to send messages down to the brainstem for you to go into fight, flight, freeze, collapse. I think
Hmm.
of freeze as brake and gas on at the same time. You're
Oof.
fighting or flighting, and you're not going anywhere. Heart beating out of your chest, but you're frozen.
Hmm.
And it's designed to do that. In today's, I got a little off of what the original thing was, but today's
No.
world, it's really hard we have these phones that maybe we're expecting a message from somebody and we're afraid of what's going to be in that message. Maybe your boss is not happy with the work that you do, and we're constantly on alert in today's world. Traffic.
Oh my, especially in South Florida. Because didn't you just get to
I
Florida?
just got here, and let me tell you. So I lived in Chicago, and I didn't have a car. And if I traveled somewhere, I'd rent a car. But I was used to public transportation and walking places. I get here, and most people don't use turn signals. Out of the road where I live, people turn left in front of me, and I'm like, they don't really care if the light is red just after yellow. They're gonna take it.
No, that's South Florida.
They're
Amy,
gonna zoom
welcome to
past
South
the
Florida. Oh,
yeah.
this is something I hear a lot when people come to visit or they know that I live here from like other places of the country. And it's just like, oh my goodness, driving in South Florida. It's like, I know, it's kind of like driving in a third world country.
So, a driving tip is to feel the seat. See if
Hmm.
and you can do this. So, there's a lot of different definitions of grounding. I think the original was feet off, like in the grass.
Hmm.
Um, but just noticing the surface that your body is on. So, anybody listening, you right here, you can feel the chair, like really feel it. Or the floor. Yeah, and I see that you're smiling. There was a little something that happened there.
Because you just reminded me, Amy, this is why we need to understand that. I really feel that's why it's important. Like, if you're listening and you're wanting to learn this technique, to go see Amy, who's a
Mhm.
somatic experiencing practitioner, because she's done this to me now twice. Because guess what? If you hear me speak, you understand I zoom. I have zoomies. My husband's like, you got zoomies. Like I zoom everywhere. And so Amy's already now twice made me think about something that nobody makes you really think about. Like, can you please like chill and just not chill, but sit and feel. And you just did that. That's why I was smiling because I was doing what you were just telling me to do. Is there something you can do right now for us, to the listeners, like to just like
Sure.
maybe a cool little what you do maybe in one of your sessions?
Sure. I would love to just stick with that and do more with the grounding. It's
Let's do
just
it.
such something that I come back to in my work with clients all the time. So you can sit or lie down any way that you want to. There's no requirement. I almost never tell anybody how to sit. I might ask them if one or another way might be nice, but if you could, I'm gonna assume that you're sitting just because I am, and that's easier. Feel the seat. Feel each part of your body that's making contact on the seat or chair. And I'm talking left butt cheek, right butt cheek, the back of, and if you're sitting cross-legged, that's okay too, but the backs of your legs, each one, And you might notice that there's more pressure on one side than the other, and that's okay. It's just noticing. You might notice the edges of where that contact is and where it's not. And if there's a back to your chair, if you're lying down, feel that too. And that's going to have a totally different quality of the feeling. And as you're doing this, if your body's telling you to move, to wiggle, to stretch, please lean into that. We want to listen to our bodies and honor what they're wanting. And if your feet are on the floor and they don't have to be, but if they are, or if they're on a stool or something, feel that contact too. And then you can, if they're on the floor, you can play with going from toes to heels, maybe the outside of your feet to the inside, and maybe rolling your ankles and continuing to feel that contact with the floor. And remember the chair. And then if you want, you can feel the clothes on your body. And if any of this doesn't feel good, please honor that and tune into something else. And your eyes can be open or closed. If you want, you can keep feeling those surfaces and let yourself look around the room or whatever space it is that you're in. I'm going to say it here, what I say to my clients, if you see something you don't like, keep looking. In this attempt to bring on some of that, it's called ventral vagus. Ventral, so we have this vagus nerve. That's this long wandering nerve that starts in the back of our neck and goes through our throat and innervates all of our organs. And from the diaphragm on up, it's the ventral vagus. If you feel calm and safe with somebody, um, that's activated. It's a really good place. If you're feeling really irritated by the person you're with or something's going on, that might not be so activated. And you might be, if it's more irritation, you're
Mm-hmm.
in your sympathetic nervous system, fight or flight. If you feel shut down, then you're in your dorsal vagal nervous system. And that's the vagus nerve below the diaphragm. That's that freezy collapsed place. And what we do in somatic experiencing, when somebody's been through trauma, being still, slowing down can be so hard. It does not feel safe. We work on that. And we work on that starting with wherever somebody's at. Some people bulldoze when they talk, just absolutely bulldoze. And so I ask them if it's okay to slow down, to notice. And some people say, nope, I'm not there. Great. Thank you. Thank you for speaking up that you're not there. And sometimes it's more in the beginning of session and as we've had co-regulation, that term,
Right.
which is you're with a regulated other.
Mm-hmm.
We can think about this like in parenting. If a kid is dysregulated, a parent can get really just like
Mm-hmm.
regulated, and you have co-dysregulation.
Yeah.
If a parent is able to stay grounded, which is really, really difficult to do, sometimes you need to remove yourself, feel those feet on the floor, maybe say take some deep breaths and then come
Right.
back, and then you can offer that co-regulation that feels safe. That's
Yeah.
going to allow that parasympathetic ventral vagus nerve to come in and activate.
Wow.
Yeah.
So when I was going through this with you, I finally quieted my mind, right? Because to me, my mind it goes 100 miles per hour, and so you could tell, Amy. I know you could tell,
Yeah, I
right?
can
But at the same
tell.
time, I have had to do a lot of work to have like my morning ritual and routine of breath work, of
Okay.
mindfulness, of prayer. So I can't, and at night, so I could sleep. And these are the things I do, right? Because I had to figure out how to function without self-medicating and very
Mm.
unhealthy coping tools. And
Yeah.
so, right? So to me, when you were doing the somatic experiencing, I think it's what, right? I started feeling my heartbeat when you were just going through it with us,
Yeah.
and it was just I heard it in my ears because I have the headphones on, and I'm like, and it started really soothing me, like the boom 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 boom, and I'm like, oh, she's good.
Thank you. I love, and I love that you said that. I have to say for me, so I used to struggle with insomnia a lot. And
Mm,
I was always read do breath work, do really slow, deep breaths. For me, that would cause me to feel my heartbeat and I would panic.
wow,
It
see?
had the opposite effect. And I think that's just important to point out because there's no one size fits all.
Exactly.
Everybody's nervous system is different. Everybody's experiences and what feels good and doesn't feel good is different. And that was another thing where I felt like, oh, something's wrong with me because
Mm,
the thing that's supposed to help isn't helping me. And that's where learning all of this was another thing that helped reduce the shame that no, nothing was wrong with me. And
mm,
that's like fantastic that was soothing for you. This was just a really regulated, it down regulated you.
yeah.
And I also want to say that some people naturally have more energy and others are naturally calmer, and that's all okay.
Right.
Like there's nothing wrong with anybody for having the temperament that they have. And if you're not able to slow down, if that doesn't feel safe, that's just information. That's information that maybe some regulating or like this body-based work might be
Hmm.
good for you. Or maybe it would be nice to spend time with somebody who does help you to feel safe or to do some activity that helps you to feel safe repeatedly, like you do
Right.
every morning and
Yeah, and it
evening.
took time. And it took time to understand that that's what I needed. It took time to understand me and become that curious observer and do
Yeah.
the work. It's not, as you know, you get a client who just wants to hurry up and heal. And honestly, there is no magic anything. There is no like abracadabra, here you are, and you're cured. It's part of being human because what you were talking about earlier, the word resiliency, like the window of tolerance,
Mhm.
you're learning how to be resilient
Mhm.
and being responsible for you and but in a safe place because especially if you grew up with a lot of traumatic experiencing, right? So you go from traumatic experiencing to somatic experiencing. I love,
I love
yeah.
it.
So
Not the
listen,
trauma
no,
experiencing. I
no,
love
no, no. And it's just being validated and understanding that we are human beings that are very unique. This is why to me I love the thumbprint. This is why to me in my belief system, it's really understanding like, what actually do you believe about yourself?
it.
Right. And that nobody's perfect, but we all have a thumbprint and we're all responsible for ourselves and also to be in a community, in a
Yeah.
respectful, loving community. And and that's sometimes what's missing. And thank goodness, like Amy, that you chose to utilize all the situations. And I have no idea your story, but I can imagine because a lot of us in this field have had situations. This is why we went into this field.
Yeah.
And you have chosen to do the hard work to now pass the baton to people and become an expert in these fields. And it's hard because the word expert, right? Is just
I
like,
know. I'm
oh,
like,
I know. I do too. Like you're an expert. And I'm like, I don't know. No, actually, you're the expert of yourself. It's just, are you listening?
yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
Is there any kind of resources or books or other things where somebody that might not be able to, we're only could take certain amount of clients, but they might be listening in Europe somewhere. They can't work with us, right? But like, where would they start to learn more about somatic experiencing or we didn't even touch the safe and sound protocol,
You did
but,
it.
but, because look at already 47 minutes have gone by. And then- So
Yeah.
tell me, like, what is it, like, what resources or practical tips can you give the audience?
Yeah, I think the first thing that I would say is it's really helpful to find some kind of body-based activity like yoga or Tai Chi, something where you're going to be able to start to tune into your body. And I think classes are a great way
Mm.
to do that. And, it doesn't have to be yoga's an easy one that people just know. Um, but I think having that experience of starting to tap in and really experience your body is invaluable. I also think that on your own, just taking mindful moments during the day, um, you could simply check in. Do I need to use the restroom? Am I thirsty? Am I hungry? Does my body feel like it needs to? Have I moved much? Especially when you're at work. If you're at work and you get into a flow, how's my posture? Potentially doing like a body scan. Am I holding tension anywhere? And I think it's important to notice that first before doing an automatic, like, first check in, start to
Mm.
get to know your own body. As far as resources for books, I would say Waking the Tiger, by Peter Levine. He's the one who created somatic experiencing. That can be read by anybody. You don't need to be a practitioner.
He
It's a,
wrote another book too, Peter Levine, the trauma.
he, he
Wait,
wrote many books. So this
oh,
is the famous one
Waking the
with the
Tiger.
with the
Okay.
tiger.
Yeah, okay. I
Yeah.
never read that one.
There's In an Unspoken Voice that is geared more towards practitioners,
Okay. Oh,
clinicians. But that's really good. There's actually several books that he's written that I haven't read. I'm gonna mention The Body Keeps the Score. Um,
that's like the go-to. And the
but
reason why
he
I say
only,
that,
oh, go ahead.
no, it's because I put everything, all the resources we talk about into the show notes. So in case
Okay.
the person's listening and they're driving, and by the
Yeah.
way, I hope you guys weren't driving when she was putting us into a trance. But but I will put the links into the show notes so then you can go and click on the links of like Peter Levine, or you'll have the information so you
Mhm.
guys can look it up yourselves. Okay,
Mhm.
so Body Keeps the Score, the Waking the Tiger. What other things or
Yeah,
places
I
do they
mentioned the
go?
book In an Unspoken Voice.
Okay.
Um, if you're a clinician, my training isn't just, it's long, it's 3 years, it's expensive, it's not going to be accessible to everybody, but traumahealing.org has information about it. There's something called the Embody Lab, and they have a lot of classes that are shorter, much more accessible, that are body-based.
Okay.
Um,
Sounds
yeah,
good.
there's a lot of books. I mean, there's a lot of
Re-
Deb Dana has done a lot with polyvagal theory to make it really accessible. Her
Mhm.
books tend to focus on, there's a lot of almost worksheet type exercises. I don't really work that way with clients, but that
Mhm.
might be nice for people to start to get familiar of whether they tend to be in fight or flight or whether they tend to be in freeze, and to be able to start to identify when they're in those states and also what helps to bring you out of those states. So basically what helps you to feel safe enough to
Mm.
come out of those states.
Yeah, some people don't even understand what that word means, safe. What do you mean? I feel safe. And then they realize, no, they've been on that kind of fight mode most of their lives. And they think that is
Ah,
safe. And then realize when they sit, they're like, oh, this is why I don't have healthy relationships and I can't keep a job, or you know what I mean? Because it's just
totally. Because we
so.
just think of physical safety and not the felt safety.
Mm,
There can be a very big difference. And the more experiences that you've gone through that have been traumatic or really, really hard, or maybe really hard without support,
mhm.
the more your system, how we talked about how the brain and body is always detecting safety or threat, is going to perceive threat. It's going to perceive threat in a conversation where somebody's tone got a little bit harsh, or even where somebody's affect is flat. So when somebody has had a lot of childhood trauma or relational trauma in childhood, there's research that shows that they're going to sense a flat affect as threatening.
Wow.
Yeah.
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 Okay. So listen, like, we could probably talk for another hour or 2 hours or three. Honestly, I know I can with you, Amy, because I know, you know. But if somebody wants to work with you, where can they find you?
Yeah, at my website, it's amyhagerstrom.com. So it's just first and last name.com is the
Okay.
best way to reach me or find.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
So, listener, well, thanks. Is there any final words, any quotes, anything before we say goodbye?
Oh, I can't think of anything. No, just be kind to yourself. Know that
Yeah.
our bodies are going through a lot in this world, and we often perceive that we're not safe when we might actually be. And I think it's just so important to have some compassion for ourselves, um, because of that. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, that's great. All right, listener, you heard her. Be kind to yourself. And remember, trust in the Lord, guard your heart, and renew your mind. Bye. And now for the disclaimer to make sure you understand that you are responsible for you. The content provided on the Holistic Counselor podcast is for entertainment and informational purposes only and is not intended as a substitute for professional medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Always seek the advice of your physician or other qualified mental health provider with any questions you may have regarding a medical or mental condition. Never disregard professional medical advice or delay seeking it because of something you have heard on this podcast. The views expressed on this podcast are my personal opinions and do not represent the views of any professional organizations with which I am affiliated. Call your doctor, 911, or 988 immediately if you have a medical emergency. The Holistic Counselor podcast does not recommend or endorse any specific tests, physicians, products, procedures, opinions, or other information that may be mentioned on the podcast. Reliance on any information provided by the Holistic Counselor podcast, guests appearing on the podcast at the invitation of the Holistic Counselor podcast, or other listeners to the podcast is solely at your own risk. Confidentiality notice. If you engage with the Holistic Counselor podcast by commenting or posting and are a client, please be aware that you may be revealing information that could compromise your confidentiality. Please remember that disclosing your identity or personal details can be linked to your clinical material. As a therapist, I am bound by confidentiality and will not respond to any disclosures of this type on this podcast. I am committed to upholding the ethics and confidentiality of the therapeutic relationship, which extends to all forms of communication in accordance with the laws and professional guidelines that govern mental health professionals. I want you to know that your privacy is of utmost importance, and you are responsible for protecting it when interacting on this platform or any other public forum. Thank you.